What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to pass a particular test. Now, you can also use this to pass several other different standardized tests like this one, but in this video, I'll be talking about the FE exam, or the Fundamentals of Engineering exam. Now, if you're an engineer, odds are you probably already know what this is, but if you're not an engineer, just wait 1 second before you click off this video. Please do me a favor and go down right now and click the like button and then go click off the video. The reason I say this is because if you don't do that, YouTube will just see a very short watch time and it'll bury this video and engineers won't actually get to see it. So please do me a favor and just click that button and then go, I'll see you in another video. So the rest of you that stuck around, the engineers out there, you might already know what the professional engineering license is and what the FE is, but if you don't, I'll just explain that really quickly. So if you work for any company, so let's just say NASA, for example, and they are designing some mechanical fixture to go on a rocket. Now, in order for them to actually put this mechanical fixture on a rocket, they need a professional engineer to sign off on that. Now, not just any engineer is a professional engineer, although any engineer could design it, as long as there is a supervising professional engineer who can sign off on it. Now, the professional engineer is a licensed engineer, so that means that they started off, they took their FE, they took their professional engineering test, and they renew their license every couple of years, showing that they still have the proper ethics required to do this, as well as the knowledge set required to do their job in a safe way, so that they can assure that the fixtures or whatever design they're implementing anywhere is safe and ethical and should be there. So to start off, you will go through one of two different paths. Now, the first one is by going through a college that is accredited by ABET, for example, is one of them. And so I went to a university that was accredited by ABET, and then afterwards you can immediately or anytime take your Fundamental of Engineering test, and then you'll be certified, and then you'll work for 4 years underneath a professional engineer, and then you can take your professional engineering license test, and then after that you'll have your professional engineering license. Now, if you did not go to a university or a college that was accredited by ABET or some other program that is allowed, then you still have another option. Instead, if you maybe, for example, did not go to an accredited school or maybe didn't go to college at all, you can still apply to get your Fundamental of Engineering license. Now, what you actually have to do for that is you work underneath a professional engineer for a few extra years in the beginning. I believe it's 3 years right now, and then after that you can apply. You have to apply in this case, so you'll apply to take your Fundamental of Engineering exam, then you'll take the exam, you'll do the regular 4 years just like the accredited people do, and then after that you can take your professional engineering licensure test. Now, with that being said, this is sort of a long process, but the FE test is going to be a big portion of this process, and that's what this video is all about. So that was a little drawn out in the beginning explaining why you might want to take this, but it's really a simple process to go through and figure out how to study for this in an efficient way, so you don't waste too much time studying, and you also don't waste your money by taking a test and then failing it because you did not prepare properly. Okay, so now how exactly do you study for this test? I broke it down into 2 different steps. They're very basic, and of course you can go through and it'll make a lot of sense once I say it, but the first thing I want to say is I recently took this test, actually just a couple weeks ago. I passed it, so I have my EIT license. In Pennsylvania they call it the EIT. In other states they call it several different things, but no matter what, it's going to be the same Fundamental of Engineering test. Now, you want to make sure that you take it for the respective state that you're in, and you want to make sure that you are either accredited or you're applying for it in the proper sense, so that you don't waste your money or have any confusion when you're taking the test. You get there and they say you can't take it or anything like that. So with that being said, the first of the 2 steps that I looked at was doing practice problems. Now, since you have so much information in the entire field of engineering that you're in, then, it's going to be very difficult to go through and study everything and read all the books and do that. So instead of doing that, what I looked at is I figured you either learned it in college or you really didn't, but assuming that you did and you learned it well enough to get through this, then what you really want to do is just work on practice problems so you can find out what you're not good at and you can review that later. And also, the main thing that I like to do in the practice problems is get used to the formula sheet. So they give you a several 100-page formula sheet as a PDF, and what you have to do when you're taking this test is search through it and find the equations you're looking for, and sometimes they're in different formats, sometimes they have tables that are confusing to read, and you really want to get used to that before you get to the test. So what I did, the very first thing I did was I went on Amazon. I have a link below to the book that I ordered. That is this book right here. It is a simple book, only a couple hundred pages, and it has tons of practice problems. Now you can find one for the specific engineering field that you're looking for. So this one, for example, is mechanical. I keep using the example of mechanical. Of course, this will work for any engineering field that you want to get into. So mechanical right here, easy book. I have the link down in the description. I'll link some other books as well. But what you want to do is you want to get this book and you just want to go through and work on the problems. Now, working on the problems should not be that hard. Of course, you're going to find a bunch of problems that you won't know how to do. And maybe if you go through and you get 50 or 60% right, that's not really that bad. But what you really want to get used to is every single time you see a question, you want to be able to find in the formula sheet where you can, see the correct formula and then implement that into the problem. Now, this is definitely a very tricky part, and as long as you are able to do that, to be honest, a lot of these problems are plug and chug. So as long as you can find the formula, you just look at the numbers and you plug them into the formula. There's very little extra thought that goes into a lot of these. Most of the problems are not calculus based, except for the calculus section in here. And so overall, the math involved with this is not that difficult. Now, the math involved in this test is actually so simple that I can show you. They require you to use a simple little scientific calculator like this one. Make sure you buy the correct calculator. That is also on the website. They'll tell you which ones you can use, but you're not allowed to use a graphing calculator or anything smarter than a simple little scientific calculator. So that just shows you that the math involved is going to be pretty simple compared to what you might have seen in college classes. Now for the second part of this studying process, after you've gone through and answered all of the questions in the book and rated yourself for how many you got right, how many you got wrong, you can then go to the second step. I'm just going to jump over my desk and show you on paper exactly what you want to do for that. Okay, so here I just have the simple document you can find on the NCEES website, and this will go down and show you exactly how many questions are going to be on each different portion you have. So in the mathematics, you have 6 to 9 questions, probs and stats, anywhere from 4 to 6. If you have computational, 3 to 5 questions. So this is going to show you, on each page, how many different questions you're going to have in each of the different categories. Now, with that being said, the next thing you want to do is you want to go through and rate how well you did on the practice exam. So here I have, when I took it, I just went through and I said, all right, on math, I got 85% of them right, and then you can go down like that. You can find out which ones you did better on, which ones you did worse on. And then from there, you can first of all calculate which ones you need to study more for, and then second of all, you can figure out, approximately what your score is going to be, and if you're ready to actually schedule your exam. So I would recommend not scheduling your exam until you are confident that you can have at least 65% of these correct, given the worst case scenario. I'm going to show you that in just one second, but I want to first say that the overall passing grade for this will of course change because it is curved based on which questions you get and how difficult it is whenever you take that exam, but overall they recommend that the passing rate could be anywhere from 50% to 55 or 60%. So that's why I like to evaluate this and assume that 65% is what you need to pass in the worst case scenario. So you want to make sure you can get 65% of these right in the worst case scenario, or approximately 65. If you only get 60 right, you might still be ready to take the test. But if you're getting 45 or 50% correct, given a worst case scenario, you might want to study a little bit more before actually taking this exam. So now how exactly are we going to calculate the worst case situation? Well, we're just going to go on the back here and we're going to say, so what you want to do is you want to go down, and if you did very well on it, so if you got 70% or 80% of these correct, you're going to say that's a good one. In a worst case scenario, you probably wouldn't have many of those because it would be good to have more of those. So you're going to say between 6 and 9 questions. We're going to say 6 questions at 85%. Okay, and then you go down, and let's just say, these are actually a little bit higher numbers, but let's say this was a bad one. Let's say this was 50%. And so if you're 50% there, you would say, all right, well, that's a bad one. And between 4 and 6 questions, if you're only getting 50%, you want to assume the worst case scenario. You want to assume you get 6 questions at 50%. So then you want to go down to each different category you have, and you want to find out, how many, say this one was good. So 90%, you got 90%. And since that's a good one, you choose the lower of the two numbers, so you say 3. If the next one's a bad one, let's say that was like 58%. Let's say 58% of engineering economics. And let's say that means that you'd have 5 questions of that. So then at the very end, what you're going to do, this is very simple. It's just a weighted average. What you want to do then is you want to go down to the bottom and you want to say the total of these. So you add up the total and then you multiply, so you find out how many questions you'd have right. you'd have the number of questions you get correct here, and you add that up, and then you divide this number on top of that number, and it'll tell you approximately what your score would be in a worst case scenario, given that you get the maximum number of difficult questions and the minimum number of easy questions. So with that being said, if you can end up with 68% or 65%, even 63%, anything in that range would be, more than good enough to go out and take the exam. Now, one thing I will say is, unfortunately, if you fail the exam, they will tell you all of the details, but if you pass the exam, they don't tell you what you scored well in or how many questions you get. That's a little bit disappointing, but I guess passing the exam is just good enough. You just kind of move on from there. All right, so there you have it, guys. That is the simple multi-step process to go through and assure yourself that you will be able to pass the Fundamental of Engineering exam in the most efficient way possible, so that you can go out there and get your licensure to be a professional engineer and make a difference in the world. So guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and drop a like below for more videos just like this one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.